And welcome everyone to episode 137 of One Piece at a Time, the One Piece read-through podcast where we read and discuss 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and freelance letterer at Shonen Jump, Brandon Bovia. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm, of course, Brandon Bovia, letterer of manga like Kaiju number 8 and Dragon Ball Super and many, many more. And we got a humdinger of an episode.
Oh boy. If you guys were tired of us complaining, my light complaining and Brandon sometimes the more overt complaining, even though I don't think we were really that bad. Oh boy.
I love every chapter in this set. Love it.
It is.
Every chapter is a 10 out of 10.
It is good from top to bottom to the point where this might be some of the best storytelling in the manga so far, bar none.
I agree. 110%. This is, and like I said, like I've been saying for the past couple episodes, I knew this was coming. I didn't remember how good it was, but I know that, like, you know, all of my complaints about kind of how the narrative setup is so, like, overly simple, and I'm just like, I know the things that I'm waiting for are coming, and here it is, and it is way better than I ever could have thought.
It recontextualizes so much stuff while also maintaining a gripping narrative in its own right. And you know, we've talked about flashbacks in the past and what they do and how they establish, and how some really good ones, and like how tragic Nami and Brooks are. This one has the potential to be so much more. Like, we're not even done with the flashback yet. I think it probably has outclassed both of those, and it makes Nami's all the more heartbreaking.
I think what it is for me is that it is so much more crunchy about, like, the world and the setting, because we don't have to worry about kind of like the emotional hook with any of the Straw Hats, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we don't have to kind of explain that stuff. So it really is like, we are going to recontextualize a whole lot of things that, you know, that you already know about the setting. We're going to flesh some stuff out, and we're going to remind you that this world sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. This is not a good world, which is funny to think about, because you think about One Piece on the whole, it's like, yeah, grand adventure.
Yep.
And
how about racism?
Yeah, you get into this, it's like, oh no, racism and the proliferation of racism and what leads to racism and how we might fight racism. And it's like, oh, crap.
Yep. Well, yeah, which is the thing, right? Because, like, and I feel like this is such the case. God, we're gushing. We haven't even gotten to the chapters yet.
I know.
But like, so I feel like so many stories in fiction is just like, oh, racism is bad. And like, yeah, no, duh. You know, that's kind of the easy part. But like, now what we're getting into with this flashback is so much of, like, again, it's the crunchy, like, what do you do with generations of trauma, and how do you build a better future? Well, also, like, I think I thought a lot about the Skypiea flashback, mm-hmm. where kind of on paper you see, like, oh god, here's an author trying to basically, like, here's his take on, like, colonialism, mm-hmm. right? Basically. And you're like, oh god, you sort of start shaking whenever you see an author kind of approach these topics, and you're like, oh, please don't be bad. You know, especially for something, you know, Skypiea written like 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. But, like, it is handled. I think what sells it for me is I always talk about One Piece's storytelling in terms of how, like, sympathetic it is towards victims, right? And it always wants to make sure, you know, kind of like, for better or for worse, who the good guys and the bad guys are, and it's almost always the good guys are the victims, and it is sympathetic to, like I guess it's just like we there's a lot of racial strife going on in these chapters, and it's never like, oh, these characters are dumb and bad for feeling this way, you know?
Yeah, and this takes this a step further, where, you know, it makes you feel sorry for the victims, and this story just really lays out everybody's a victim.
Yeah, everybody's a victim. Yep.
Even people that were bad guys in the past are kind of victims. And there's a single line in these set of 5 chapters to just cut through things like a knife, as far as like, there's the theory, there's the whole point of this. And it's going to take
to see which one you think it is. because there's so many.
There's a lot in here, but I honestly think it comes down to one of the lines in chapter 625.
Cool.
So
I'll try to double back to that.
Yeah.
So don't forget.
We'll see how we do. But yeah, let's get to it because spoilers. I think this is going to be a long one.
yeah. I don't know. We'll try to skim through the less important details best we can.
Yeah. But let's get to chapter 621, Otohime and Tiger. And hey, I love it. We get more decks of the world. We get to see the Syrup Village boys all grown up, Usopp's crew. And gotta say, they're looking like fine young men already. I like how they still look the same, but they're absolutely grown up.
Yeah, I kind of like that they dress the same.
Yeah, that's a fun little detail. Still have Usopp's pirate crew on them. It's just like, these are good kids.
I appreciate that. God, because we're seeing so many characters like in like their first time skip design, basically. Mm-hmm. So it's cool that Oda's getting a chance to show these off.
I think that's just the fun of it because there's it's not just the Straw Hats that age. We got a lot of people that age and to see how they all change, and that's just fun. I enjoy that. I also like how the glasses kid kind of thinned out because he was sort of
oh yeah, he was
a little husky in the back, but he's sort of thinned out and he's probably gonna be a handsome young man.
yeah, for sure. Oh man.
Yeah. Time to get into the chapter itself and go to Fishman Island 16 years ago with a proper introduction of Queen Otohime. And it all stems, our way we're introduced is that there's a bank robber with a hostage, both fishmen and a mermaid. And here comes Otohime just coming right for him. He's just saying like, he tries to shoot at her, but she dodges the bullet and is able to just smack him across the face.
Yeah. Well, not only dodges the bullet, I think they explain this later, that's observation hockey. Like she's just straight up. I think that's in this chapter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you're right. And she's able to dodge it and then just smacks him across the face. But she is so weak that she gives herself a compound fracture slapping him because she's a goldfish mermaid.
Which makes sense.
The weakest fish, kind of pretty much. And there she is.
Weakest fish, but she's got a mouth on her.
Oh, yeah, she does. Where she just starts laying into him. It's like, why would you do something as senseless as robbery? And even despite the fact that she has a compound fracture, she just keeps smacking him.
Right, yeah, because this fishman who's, this robber, he's just like, I got kids to feed. I got 10 kids to feed,
And she's just like, that's all the more reason. Do you think your children want to be raised on stolen money? And she just keeps smacking him like, I don't care if my hand shatters.
What an introduction to a character. And basically the first thing we learned about Otohime is that she is deeply empathetic.
Oh, absolutely. Because after slapping him all those times, she just starts crying and saying, I'm sorry, you're my subject and I failed to notice your pain. And yeah, it makes the robber cry as well.
Yeah. And God, I feel like if this isn't the themes of this flashback in a microcosm where, he's just like, he had no choice because he's down on his luck, his shop burned down, arson, his money was stolen, there's no jobs. Again, it's the vicious cycle, of misfortune and wrongdoing. So it's just like, yeah, that's what we're dealing with here. And I feel like it's a really smart way to introduce the kind of story that this is, and Otohime as kind of a major playing part in it.
Yeah, you immediately get the love for Otohime because she is just the most compassionate character out there that we've met so far. Yeah. I honestly can't think of any more compassionate because that whole speech and slapping him just gives him the happiest smile. It's like, thank you for crying for me, Your Majesty. It's just
yeah. And I love that she's just crying and she's like, you're welcome, take care. And it just and I love that she even like the kids come to run up to hug her and she's just like, oh, you've got snot dripping from your nose, for your own sake I will hit you. It's a fun like it's a surprisingly fun character gimmick.
Mm-hmm. It's like, if you're gonna have a runny nose, do it right, both nostrils. So she needs to slap that kid from Wind Waker, please.
Oh yeah.
And I do love the guy. It's like, how touching. It's like, really?
Yeah. Is it? In a way, it's a little bit cursed.
A little bit, but we find out that she has a a schedule, a daily schedule that she does, that she wants to move the kingdom of Ryugu to the surface. Their skin is a different color. They look different. We can't wait for the humans who say those things to come around. We must go to them. There's 30,000 feet of misunderstanding that separates us from them. So the ones who come here are the pirate variety. The ones who buy the merfolk are kidnappers, called aristocrats. We only have a small contact with kind of the very worst of them. We don't know that much. We need to emigrate and integrate with them in order to come to an understanding. And you get where she's coming from. You understand that whole thing, but you also perfectly understand oh, this is a bad idea.
Yeah, and even, Jinbei, who's here listening to the speech, he's just like, history has already given us the answer. We at this point in time, 16 years ago, we are, of course, still dealing with what has to be centuries of racial animosity. So, even just based off of what we know about the story of the Fishmen right now, you can kind of see, oh, okay, here's Otohime's approach is that she just wants to go directly to them. And try to overcome the hatred, that has been, she's trying to break the cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. And we do know that this is already, Whitebeard already has claimed territory over Fishman Island. So there's that aspect as well. It's fascinating. So I immediately had a thought. As soon as we saw, we will move the kingdom of Ryugu to the surface. I'm like, oh, that's what it means with Luffy destroying Fishman Island. He's going to be the catalyst that brings Fishman Island to the surface. And for the record, I know that isn't happened yet, but that's my working theory. That's the meaning behind the prophecy.
I think there's something there.
Yeah, there's some aspect there because I know, spoilers for those reading with us, I'm sorry. Well, honestly, I don't remember a Fishman Island being destroyed. I'll put it that way, because I'm a little foggy on the details at this point. But I'm pretty sure it isn't. And if I had to see anything, I see that as oh, that's how that prophecy is going to work out. It is just me theorizing.
Mm-hmm. How should I put this? I think there are situations where you could see that prophecy coming true in a way that you wouldn't think. I'm saying that based on knowing maybe 20% more than you do right now.
Oh my God.
in terms of kind of where things go and how it plays into the kind of the history of Fisherman Island. But I think the idea that it could move somewhere else is plausible. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to dig into this line too, because King Neptune, again, talking about the minister of the left brings up the Whitebeard thing, and King Neptune is just the world Otohime dreams of is exactly like the one our forebears sought to create centuries ago. She's trying to achieve what they did.
And it shows Noah.
And there's it shows the boat, which I feel like if you...
Are we going Waterworld with the origin of the Fishmen?
I feel like if you know your biblical references, you might know where this is going.
Yeah, I'm my first thought is, well, of course, biblical references, but also Waterworld's there's all this water, so some of the people involved into fish people, so there is an origin point, I guess. So
yeah, I don't know really much more than you on that front in terms of the history of the Fishmen. But that feels potentially plausible.
Yeah. Also of note, we get to see a baby version of Shirahoshi, who is still huge and definitely confirms that fishmen and mermaids definitely breed in the same way as actual fish. Because there's no way that Otohime had that.
I had the same idea. I think she's 4. No, not even 4.
Yeah, I think she's newborn or something like that.
Yeah, she's a newborn right now. Yeah, because she's 4 later in the flashback. So, good God,
it's nuts.
Yeah,
that's also when we get Neptune mentioning it's her natural color of observation hockey power.
Oh yeah, yep.
She's all about being right there with them, and well, that's when we get to meet Arlong again.
It's not that different, but I love his young design. He's 25 here.
Yeah, it's a good look. You can see how it's similar to when he first took over Nami's Island, Cocoa Village, and all that. Still younger than that point, and I think the bowler hat. And Arlong has always had a fantastic design, so to see it back is pretty great. And he's already, created the Arlong pirates at this point. And he's just like, he's basically like, what are these petitions? Get rid of them. They're stupid. They're like,
yeah. He's just as racist as he is in the current time. So like the seeing him here in this appearance is it tracks.
Yeah. And that's when Jinbei is just sort of smoking nearby. He's like, just let him go. Cause he's part of the guard and he's seeing one of his other guardsmen get attacked. And he's like, just let him go, Arlong.
Yeah. Which is, we only see it a few times here. I really love Jinbei and Arlong's dynamic here. Like even now, even here, the Jinbei he's 30 here, but he's got that tired dad vibe to him. he's just like oh, you stupid kids.
It's weird to think that in the present he's 46.
Oh my god, yeah.
So he is ancient in terms of
anime characters. Yeah, he's ancient.
Oh gosh, but Jinbei's just like, let him go, and Arlong follows along with him. It's just like, they just call each other brother and comrades. And even though Jinbei's like, you're pirate scum, and doesn't really go with it, but that's when Fisher Tiger comes back, and that gets both of them excited. Just like, oh, Big Brother's back, and I love Fisher Tiger's shirt here, where it's just frog, no hippo.
Yes, it's just a giant hippo with the bill. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like you can see the frog pit, but then it's the under part. It's like, oh yeah, hippo.
Yeah, that's great.
I kind of want that shirt.
Did Papagu design that? I wonder.
No, I don't think you don't see the branding. So
that's true. That's true.
Unless it's like early Papagu. But yeah, they want to know more about his adventures, and that's when we get finally some backstory on the Fishman district itself. It actually began as a giant orphanage, but fell into chaos, and the managers of the orphanage lost control. So it became a lawless area where outcasts from all around Fishman gathered. But Fisher Tiger was the boss of the Fishman district, but he sailed off in search of adventure. Jinbei was his second in command, who became one of the king's elite soldiers, and Arlong was the fiercest of them. He became a pirate, and he of course became a pirate and terrorized the seafloor. Well, hey, remember Macro from the whole thing with Cammy? The kidnapping her?
I don't actually. I didn't remember at all.
Cammy is the one. Macro is the one I think that caught it caught Hachi. That's kicked off the whole thing where Cammy and them met the Straw Hats to initially save Hachi and all that.
I'm glad you remembered because I did not.
Oh gosh, but so they're all sort of. You can sort of see where they're coming from. And I like how they're like. Arlong's just most brutal of them. And maybe they may not be the strongest, but he's definitely the most brutal. Of them.
But you definitely kind of understand that they all have like a history together.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating that way. But of course, Fisher Tiger does the whole thing at Marijoa, freed the slaves, and that just gets everybody pumped up to the point that like Jinbei resigns from the army. Arlong has his crew join up with him. And that's the creation of the Sun Pirates because, again, the getting rid of the slave brand and just the combination of all these different groups. And that's how we get this massive crew of fishmen who are honestly kind of boss.
Yeah, no, that final spread of the chapter is just incredible. We sort of see that final scene where they're taking on the Navy. Like God, Jinbei's got this one Marine soldier in like a chokehold, talking about it's legal to own slaves, but freeing them is a crime. How could you, and he's thinking about Otohime, just like how can you still tell us to love humans, while maintaining that. So there begins some of the moral grayness of it all.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and again, I love as we're about to see like the sort of conflicting philosophies are really going to start to come into play here.
Yeah, it's honestly the most fascinating part of these chapters.
Yeah,
but
I also love that this event that was unequivocally to us when we first learned about Fisher Tiger back on Amazon Lily, where like that seems like an unequivocally good thing, but we are now learning what some of the wider consequences were of that event for both Fishmen and humanity.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
it's the creation of a massive pirate crew, so it's a big deal.
Those actions have consequences.
Makes for interesting stuff, but yeah, let's not waste any time. Get to the next chapter, 622, The Sun Pirates, and got our 2-page spread of, hey, you want some One Piece Legos?
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. This spread might be foreshadowing, but it's too early to tell.
What? Sure, why not? My whole thought was like, oh, okay, we need a One Piece Lego set. I want a Lego Mary or Lego.
No. We were that was sort of kind of the discussion. I think, as it were, is like, oh, if there's sort of like a Lego theming to what's about to come, like that, we're gonna get One Piece Legos for sure.
That's
it might be Oda's way of getting that brand deal in.
I'm not much of a Lego person, but I gotta admit that'd be tempting.
It would be.
But let's get into the chapter itself, and they're talking about what Tiger accomplished, how he's the hero of Fishman Island, and Neptune's sort of thinking about conversations with him. It's like, did he really do it? You want to free the slaves, and Tiger's like, I can't stand it. Being a slave is living hell. It's not right to treat people like chattel, so I've made up my mind. And he's reporting what he saw, and all Tiger says is human nature.
Yeah, which that just gets Queen Otohime in tears. As the person who wants to believe in the good of humanity, you can't also Fisher Tiger saw what he saw with his own eyes.
And we'll be getting into what he saw later. But it's also interesting. It's like Neptune's like, oh, the status of Fishman Island is worse than before, so we won't be able to attend the reverie. They're trying to become part of...
They're trying to rejoin society, basically.
Yeah, basically. That's why she's trying to sign all these petitions, get people to sign these petitions to join up. And it's very cute how attached Otohime is to Shirahoshi. Basically, just like, even though Shirahoshi was crying the first time we saw her, she's like, you bring me such peace.
Yeah. There's something so almost realistic. There's something so almost motherly in a way about Otohime's range of emotions that we see from her here. Because she's not just a two-dimensional piece, just this is my only thing. She's a parent and she's a person, and so she has her own feelings. She gets frustrated, she gets angry, but she also has a cause that she believes in. And I really appreciated, again, because I feel like it would be really easy for a character like Otohime to become just a what's the word I'm looking for?
It's not quite the right word, but maybe something similar to Flanderize, where here's her thing, sign my petition. I'm going to cry for you, that sort of thing, and just become, a joke, which is something that One Piece kind of does, but Otohime might be one of the most fully fleshed out backstory characters we've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I cannot think of the word I'm trying to say for the life of me, but yeah, it is sort of that idea that she's not just a mouthpiece for what is this side of the argument, right? She has more to her than her beliefs, but her beliefs fuel everything else about her character too, in a way. So to me, it is just the right amount of, yes, this is what she wants, this is what she believes in, and she's going to try to get people on her side. But as you can see with how time passes, it takes a while for people to come along around, if they ever do, really. And so it just seeing her work hard in spite of the state of the world right now, I think is just that's real world revolution stuff right there.
Oh yeah, especially because the island, she's trying to get people to sign the petition, but they're like, we're in all of what Tiger did, and it also symbolizes our separation, so I can't sign it. And she just goes, it doesn't have to be now. 7 years, 11 years, 15 years. All that matters is eventually signing it so we can join in the reverie.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing I feel like that we see in this set of chapters. It's kind of the immediate sort of gratification versus the long term. And I think the Fisher Tiger side of things feels much more like the immediate side, but it's also not unjustified either.
No, absolutely not. Otohime is absolutely thinking long term in every way. And again, it gets to my line that I'll talk about in a few chapters, where again it gets to the heart of the matter, and you can see that line really clarifies why she's all about that.
And I love that, we even see, oh man, there's a lot of dialogue too about like the children and what they believe and how they're, how again, like the cycle of racism and, how you teach the children, informs their beliefs for the future. So we see on this page of just like, we see a young Hody Jones and his crew, who are just kind of like, oh, screw those humans. Arlong always says humans are trash.
Go Sun Pirates, we're with you, Arlong. It's funny to see, young Hody at this point, but it's
but that's indoctrination, right? Like, yeah, that's how it starts.
It absolutely is, and you can just see where they kind of come from there. But we instead cut over to the Sun Pirates wreaking havoc on another marine ship, and just everybody doing their best. I still love how we get to see all the people from Arlong's crew, how they took part in all this. It's pretty fun. Getting that extra context, and like even the Marines are like, hey, hand it on to the slaves. Then your crimes will be and they're just like, what proof do you have slaves on this? There's slaves on this ship, and they just, again, it's crazy. They're trying to like it makes sense in history sense and all that stuff and how the laws worked in the old days, but it's still just amazingly how wrong it feels and how easily it is to get behind the Sun Pirates. It's like it's slaves.
Yeah.
It's insane that we're upholding this stuff. And you got to think back. You always got to think Kobe. Kobe is our one shining light as far as the Marines go.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we're getting back to this whole, like, the reason that they have the sun branding in the first place is just like, you can't even prove that, there are any slaves here. Like, there's no slaves here, we're not going back. And it's also, it's a fun scene too, to just kind of see, like, I feel like we don't really get to see Fishmen get to fight in their element against the Marines, who are stuck on a boat.
Yeah. And, Arlong's he's already ready to kill.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But time to go to Marineford, where we get to see Borsalino, our future Kizaru, as a vice admiral. I love his look here. He looks like so private detective-like.
He does. And I love the guy he's talking to, too. He's got, like, the Marge Simpson hair.
And just the hat on top of it. I think we later learn his name's Strawberry.
I think so, yeah.
It's just an amazing design. And remind me, it's Rear Admiral that's above Vice Admiral. That's like, it's the 3 Rear Admirals, or is it Rear Admiral below? I'm blanking at the moment.
Oh, I don't remember.
Is it just straight up Admiral? I don't remember.
I think so. I think Rear Admirals, because he's from he's from the G2 branch, so he's he's in a separate branch away from Marineford, so that leads me to believe that Rear Admiral is below Vice. Okay. Well, no, that makes a good question, because like there are plenty of Vice Admirals, so I don't know. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head.
Either way, he's sort of learning about all this and basically getting details. It's just basically, it's like, okay, they are a problem.
Oh, they're way stronger than we thought.
Yeah.
Oh, it turns out they're really good at fighting in water.
It's kind of useful. But of course, Arlong's getting chewed out and bonked on the head. Even Jinbei's getting yelled at because he goes too far. It's like, Tiger's like, we are not murderers. We have to know when to stop. We do not kill humans. If we kill them, then we lose, even if they're trying to kill us. So we don't want to become like them. And you can see how he's also thinking towards the future, but it's extremely short term.
Yeah. And he even says like he's not here to avenge the centuries of persecution. He's so much more specifically about fighting against the unjust laws to free the oppressed. And that's what makes Fisher Tiger such an interesting character in his own right, because like he also feels, again, like justified in a way, like in that he has his own kind of moral standing in all of this,
and he knows that humans will just get even more brutal.
Yeah, and I guess not to get ahead of myself, because we'll touch on more on this later, but the idea that like he doesn't want to stoop to their level, he understands, at least on some level, that if he just went on like a killing rampage, that would make the situation worse. And so at the end of the day, he and Otohime want the same thing. They are just kind of the approach they take and their sort of philosophy around it is different.
Mm-hmm. And his philosophy definitely feeds into people like Arlong, who wants to go even further. It's just like, no, we got to just strike pure fear into their hearts. Let's make them scared of us so we never have to worry about them again.
Yeah, and I love this conversation between Fisher Tiger and Jinbei where, he's just wondering, does Otohime even see any difference between himself and Arlong?
Talks about this demon inside of him, which we don't get any details on at the moment.
Yeah, we'll learn about that later. But that line to me is like, no, Fisher Tiger knows. He knows what he's doing. He kind of understands his place in all of this.
Well, we get another little passage of time as they continue their raids, and Otohime's trying to get people to sign the petition, and people are still refusing for various reasons. And they start getting bounties. Fisher Tiger with 230 million berries. Jinbei starting out with 78 million.
Yeah, I guess for the crime of attacking Mary Joa, you gotta start him high.
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny to think that. I guess it makes sense that Luffy's is so much higher because he attacked all three of the key points. So he's at 400
done it multiple times. Yeah. Also, I love the panel of Otohime just going, sign it. Just gets a guy running away screaming.
This is a scary goldfish. We then move forward 3 years on a certain island where they're requested by the people there about this girl, this child that escaped from Mary Joa when Tiger freed the slaves. Her home's not far away, but they're not good enough mariners to take her there. And we properly meet the 11-year-old Koala. She's thanking him, like, oh, thank you for freeing me 3 years ago. And the fishmen are just like, I don't know how I feel about having a human on here.
Yeah.
Arlong immediately starts beating on her because, he can't take the fact that she won't stop grinning.
I'm going to just say it. The grin sound effect is foreshadowing.
Oh, no.
It is that is not a, oh, maybe. No, when I saw that and I went, oh, my God.
I'm contextless here. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I forgot about Koala, but as soon as I saw her, and I don't know the ultimate fate of Koala, if she even has one beyond these chapters, but I saw her and just something clicked. It's like, oh, this character. And
no comment.
And you just get it immediately where she gets a nosebleed and she rips off part of her pants in order to just start scrubbing and apologizing. It's like, no, I'll work hard for you. I'll clean and not rest until everything is done. So please don't hit me. I'm sorry. And Jinbei's just like, what are you doing?
She's smiling through the pain. That's what in part, that's what the grin sound effect is. It is this is all you can do is smile, in such a horrible situation because you were a slave right now. And, just that she says that she won't cry no matter what. So please don't kill me. Her whole dialogue here, just like, it says so much about what her life was like in Mary Joa.
It is chilling to see. Like this might be the darkest character in all of One Piece so far.
We'll see more situations like Koala's, and I think kind of the implications is it's pretty brutal. It's pretty messed up.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. If you thought that, I feel like every time you're like, man, the Celestial Dragons can't get any worse, they find a way to just get worse and worse.
Oh yeah, they do. Like this, she was freed 3 years ago, so 8 years old and just ingrained in this, like free for 3 years and still ingrained to this point.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's a trauma response. Like, that's all I can think of when I see her smiling. Trying to smile like that is this is your only option, basically.
And Tiger just immediately goes brutal. Is like, no, take her to my cabin. He immediately burns the slave mark off of her body. Because thinking like it was harsh, but there's the only way to get her better because she can't do it without that brand. And as soon as she wakes up with the bandages on, she's immediately smiling and it's like, oh, I passed out. I'm sorry, but I didn't cry. So please don't kill me. And Tiger's like, we're not like the celestial dragons. He throws away his guns. Like, we're not going to kill anybody. We're going to take her home. And that's when she finally starts crying.
Well, yeah, it took you long enough. That's just, I won't cry. And then oh man, there's so much to unpack here about this whole situation.
Oh yeah, there is.
But I feel like you understand the lives that the Fishmen have lived now, kind of being thrown into the situation where they have to take care of an orphan child, and you see how Fisher Tiger reacts, and you just know that he's trying to be better, right? He's trying to be above it. Yeah, that's what I really like about the situation.
I'm
from a narrative standpoint.
From a narrative standpoint, because my God, this is brutal.
Yeah, it's good writing, but it hurts.
Let's go ahead and move on to chapter 623, Fisher Tiger the Pirate. And hey, we finally get to see Kaya, still studying to become a doctor.
She's got suitors.
Yeah, she's got some admirers there. And thank you, Mary, for keeping them at bay. I love how she has, you see Straw Hat pinned up there. You can pretty clearly see Usopp's hat. Like,
this just reminded me that Mary's dead in the live action.
I know. Poor Mary. He didn't deserve that.
He didn't.
But man, I love how Kaya looks.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't have the Nami look to her, I don't think. In this,
she's got the refinement. She kind of looks like how I wish Vivi had been.
Yeah, and we haven't seen time skip Vivi yet, so there's a chance.
We saw that cover, the request.
Yes, we saw the request. I don't know if she was aged up in that one though.
That's true, but either way, like that is at least how Oda draws her now, relative compared to how she was drawn in Alabasta. So just based on how his art style changed as a whole. I'm glad that Kaya kind of keeps the reserved, refined look, because it would make sense for like a sickly girl like her to just like have her boobs out.
Yeah, exactly. She will always be a much more reserved character, which good.
Yeah, so
good.
I'm glad he maintained that.
Yeah. Into the chapter itself, though, they found an internal compass to get to Koala's hometown, and here she is. They actually got her a haircut. They got her a dress. She's looking a lot more cleaned up. I like how Hachi's just, even now you can see how Hachi's a good guy. Yeah.
Speak for yourself, brother.
I like how they sort of like really adopted to her. Like it's like, yeah, we like Koala.
Yeah, it just this interaction is so cute. Again, from all these poor fishmen who've just been traumatized by humans so much, and now it does feel very kind of classical and tropey, and a little bit of just like, oh, now kind of the characters who are the most injured kind of have to take care of this little girl. But
again, it really does emphasize that Hachi is a good person.
Yeah. There was never any doubt.
Right. But she still has a nervous tick where if she gets nervous, she starts cleaning and gets the grin back on. So it's like, ooh.
Yeah, which again is also, however long that she's been with the Sun Pirates, it couldn't have been long enough to really heal her trauma. So I'm kind of, it's very realistic that it is sort of portrayed in this way.
For sure. And we also properly meet Aladdin, the ship doctor.
What a 10 out of 10 name, 10 out of 10 design. Yeah. No notes.
Great design.
Fantastic.
I love it. He's called Aladdin, but he looks like a genie. Thanks to his the fact he's a merman. Although I did take Arlong, the whole point of the sun tattoo is not know who was a slave and who wasn't, who was a slave and who wasn't. And he's like, you seem to know a lot. He's speaking from experience as a former slave. He's like, that seems a little cutting.
Yeah, I love Arlong talking to an 11-year-old girl. And you could totally imagine that this is how he would have handled Nami in the same way. Or he's just like, what's your mama really teach you about us? It's just like, oh no, you don't get it.
Yep, it's like, oh, this is a preview. You're right, I didn't even think about that, but that is a preview of Nami. Oh no.
Mm-hmm. Well, God, I love this whole exchange here, where again, what we were talking about of how we saw how the kids like Hody and his friends viewed humans, and here's Arlong going about that their spawn adopt the ideas of their parents. It's just like you're doing the same thing.
And he's from all these journeys, he's doubled down on his viewpoints. But
yeah,
Jinbei seems to have refined his thought process, because it's like, no, they don't all look down on us. Some seem different. Many humans seem to fear us. Is it because we're pirates? Is that why they're afraid of us? And that's when Koala's like, no, it's like because they don't know anything. And that sort of clicks with him with what Otohime was talking about. So they fear what they don't understand. It's just like, like you can sort of see him, like the gears are turning about how he's sort of viewing Otohime's words now.
I am going to get, well, no, I feel like we've talked about this a little bit, but like, I do think that there's something there, based on the idea that because like the societies in the world of One Piece are so separate from each other, since, you know, most people aren't going to be traveling on water because it's dangerous, right? So when we're on water, we're mostly seeing the viewpoints of like the Marines or pirates. So like for the average person, you know, if they've never even heard of a fishman and don't really have that capacity for hate, yeah, I could totally see that. Like they don't know, like they're not scared because they just don't know. Whereas the humans who have been taught that the fishmen are dangerous, you know, like probably for the islands that are most affiliated with the world government are probably the ones most likely to be fed that lie.
Yep, for sure. Again, going back to my line, we're getting there. I'm so glad it comes out towards the end because it really does feed into everything.
Yeah, like poetry, it rhymes.
Mm-hmm. But they arrive a few weeks later at Full Shout Island, one of them on the Grand Line. So we're never going to be visiting this place since we're going to be going to the New World after this. So interesting there. So Tiger is going to walk Koala to her village. Koala's going to tell everyone in the village that fishmen are good people, and they're all the pirates are happily waving goodbye, except for Arlong. She's like, nope, he's just going to be another one of the humans.
Yeah, I love that panels of the two of them walking away. Like they're just like she's just kind of playing with them. It's adorable.
She's really come to look up to Tiger, and is there a little squirrel there? It like makes it seem like he's a little bit annoyed in the very last panel where it's the farthest away.
I think so, yeah. He's just for sure.
It's like, yeah. They arrive at the village, and it's all wordless, but Koala reunites with her mother. It's happy tears all around.
Before you move on, there is a cool little bit of dialogue where Arlong kind of points out what you pointed out. They're like, oh, yeah, Jinbei's kind of changed over the past 3 years. So his viewpoint has evolved a bit.
Yep. And but Arlong's like, what's one human in a secluded village going to do about fishmen? It's too small. He always likes the big measures, which is why he defaults to cruelty.
I mean, God, there's so much Arlong gets so much characterization here.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we've learned
characterization where it just seemed like Arlong was just this evil dude who thought he was superior to humans, and it just seems maybe not one-dimensional, but more one-dimensional than you'd think.
If anything, we have learned that he's always been edgy. But I feel like, I think maybe because we're in this setting in this time period right now where we are getting kind of the full understanding of his trauma. There's something about like we are seeing what he sees right now, and we are seeing characters like Fisher Tiger and Jinbei kind of like slowly kind of change their view of the world, and Arlong is the most consistently like he is a hater from start to finish.
Nothing is going to convince him otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's, and yet somehow about Arlong being so consistent about it still kind of makes it feel like development in a way. There's something fun about learning that, oh no, he was always this way.
Yeah, he was never going to change, and Luffy just needed to take care of him. But unfortunately, as he's leaving, Tiger gets surrounded by the Navy and Strawberry. Turns out Rear Admiral Strawberry. So yes, I do believe he's lower than Rear Admirals or lower than Vice Admirals. But the people on a certain island told us that you'd be coming here. We've already obtained confirmation from the village that you just came from, that there was a commotion. Although that was under the condition that we overlooked the girl who was the property of the Celestial Dragons. And you know what your crimes are: assault and escape. And it didn't click to me what the escape part was at first.
Oh, yes.
We'll get into that a bit later. But yeah, sold out by the people he was asked to help.
And of course, God, there's that line too where it's like, oh, under the condition we overlook the girl. Like, they're not gonna. Don't trust them as far as you
hope, but it's unlikely. It's really unlikely knowing what we know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Fishmen pirates are just hanging out like, well, okay, what's going on? And that's that they start hearing the gunshots. And that's when they see that the Navy's surrounding them. They sink their ship. They have to dive into the water. And Tiger is still standing. He is on land getting shot at by all these guys and still not backing down.
He full on smacks a Navy guy just like 20 feet into a rock. Just covered in blood.
But the Sun Pirates rally, and they all these battles are going on, and that's when Koala's like, "Hey, do you hear something?" And her mom's just like, "No."
Boy, that feels like on multiple levels. That feels like a I don't know. That just it cuts deep.
These people saved your daughter. And she's willing to let them get captured like this. Not that she can do anything. But...
And she's just, which I think is the point, right? I mean, because it is, they sold them out for sure. But like, there's also I feel like if the world government comes knocking, there is also kind of nothing you can do at that point. So I don't mean to sympathize with it because it is, objectively evil. God, just thinking about like, again, parents and children, and like what Arlong was talking about earlier about like what their parents teach their children. And so I feel like there's a little bit like it's so sad too, because this little girl is meeting up with her parents for the first time in years, and the first thing that happens is, just like do not believe your ears.
Honestly, in a way, it goes back to Strong World, because the people were like, we're being terrorized by this guy. And we know he wants to go elsewhere, so we're just like, get him away from us. Let it be somebody else's problem. And until they actually meet the person who's going to be a problem. And again, it's hey, kind of inspired. Oda had a heavy hand in that movie. Almost like it kind of matters that kind of viewpoint.
Man, I'm so glad you brought that up. That I wouldn't have thought of that, but you're so right. And that feels so true to life in terms of like, again, just like real world social progress, right? And this is it's 2-3 lines of dialogue, but it says so much about like, in the situation of what does it take for like the average person who just wants to reunite with their family? Like, what does it take to get them to really fight for or care about other people? And like, that's also in a way the world that the Fishmen are trying to fight against, is to get people to care.
Yeah. For sure. But in the aftermath, they were able to escape, steal a Navy ship, and Tiger is grievously wounded. This is when we learned that he has a rare blood type. He will die without a transfusion. No one else on the crew has that blood type. However, and this is an interesting new bit that I did not remember, the blood on this Navy ship is human blood. And we have compatible blood, so we can save you. We have your blood type. We can save you. So we just give you that transfusion. And Tiger's like, no, I'd rather die than have their blood inside me. It's unclean. It's the blood of our prosecutors, and I won't be indebted to them. I won't accept sympathy from them. I will never yield to humans. And it's like, you can sort of see the shock on Jinbei's face. Like, where is this coming from?
Oh, right. Like it's kind of hardcore even for him.
Yeah, this is so much more advanced than you'd ever expect from Tiger, from what we've seen of him up this point. But that's when he says, is like, there's the mentions. Oh, that voyage was a long one. What did you see in your last journey? Oh, it was human nature. And that's when Tiger reveals, on my last journey, not long after I left, I was captured, and I spent several years on Marijoa. I was a slave. So all of a sudden, all these stories we've had about humans being able to save Tiger, but humans refusing to save him, when that's not the case at all. Mm-hmm. And also the lie of Tiger climbing the side of the Red Line in order to free the slaves of Marijoa. He escaped, but he did not climb.
Oh boy, I didn't even think about that aspect either. But like that, oh man, like how do I? Fisher Tiger is a folk hero, and I feel like this is saying so much about the concept of folk heroes and heroism in general, in terms of like how stories are communicated and change over time, and how like those narratives are warped in a way that is most convenient to the listener, right?
Yeah.
From both perspectives, even, that he didn't climb the red line, as I remember we remarked back at Amazon Lily, we're like, whoa, like that's badass.
Yeah. How strong is this guy? And he's strong, but I'm unsure he could actually climb the red line at this point. So
he could, because he's just a normal dude.
Yeah, he's just an exceptionally strong
he's a
fish
really
man,
strong,
but not like too crazy in terms of things. And in fact, it might even be possible that Jinbei ultimately is tougher than Tiger. We don't know.
Yeah. And especially, God, now that you bring up that idea of kind of like Fisher Tiger's story has lies from multiple angles, and then this speech from him hits so much differently because it comes from, again, it's like a place of hurt.
He even admits to everybody, he's like, I lived the life I wanted, and everything I did went against what Otohime wanted to accomplish. She is right. Everyone wants peace, but we can never change the island. That's the job of youngsters like Koala who know nothing of the past. And that kind of gets into what I'm going to be talking about later, but we'll save that for later. But children, really the big point of the story is children are so important to this aspect of racism and how it proliferates. But Tiger says, don't say anything to the people of the island. Don't tell them of our tragedy or our rage against the humans. There are compassionate humans in the world. I know that. And it's foolish to die and leave only hatred as legacy. But I can't overcome this demon in my heart. My flesh refuses their blood. I can't love humans.
And that's the demons that he was talking about.
Yeah. We saw Koala's tick with the cleaning, and I think that's also why it affected him so much. Seeing her like that. And I also wonder, with his little like getting annoyed with her, I wonder if some part of him is also still, I can't love this girl. I'll protect her. I want to help the children, but I'm still annoyed that I have to be with this girl. It gives an extra layer with just a small panel that doesn't say anything. It's just sort of body language.
Yeah. I think there's definitely on some level, again, like, I feel like Fisher Tiger's actions throughout all that we've seen, like I feel like he understands his place in this world, and he understands, again, that he can't love humans ever. So his actions with Koala, I think, come from an understanding of who she is and who he is, and kind of like that giant wall that stands in between them. But he still helps her regardless, but knows that, again, like his line that he cannot cross is that, he cannot accept their blood.
Yeah,
man, there's something so tragic about Fisher Tiger as a character who I feel like in his heart he wants to be above it all, but just because of his experiences he just can't.
Who can blame him?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you see how these people are treated. We've seen how slaves are treated, and I feel like that's a light dose of what we've seen based on based on Koala. So yeah, what do they do with, that's a child, a human child. Yeah. What does that mean for a fish man?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just, I don't think there's any bottom to the lows that they will go to. But like, yeah.
Fortunately, he does die happy, because not happy, but at least relieved, where he feels like a failure, I think. But they're like, no matter what you say, the slaves you freed owe you their lives. You are a hero of the Fishman Island who performed that great deed. And he just dies saying, that's good to hear.
I wonder if that's similar to Ace.
Maybe he's smiling a little bit, so I think there's at least it's not the same as, quite the same as Ace, but there's at least some relief there.
Yeah, I definitely can't say for sure, but yeah, man, learning the true story of Fisher Tiger again. I'm so glad you brought up how the story was full of lies in every direction. Really, I think that brings it to a new level to me of like. here's this larger than life figure who ultimately was just a
above average
a person,
dude.
yeah, he was just a normal person, who ultimately just like couldn't rise above his fate. And I think that makes it more tragic than just being like, oh, here's this great hero who did the right thing because he was right and just, and he was right and just, but he was also just a normal person who was a victim of the world that he grew up in.
Mm-hmm. He had empathy for the other slaves, but he couldn't bring himself to love the humans.
Yeah,
so
and
it's fascinating.
Yeah, man, and that he could have lived. It was between life and death, and I feel like it says so much about if he didn't have that hatred, he would have been able to live.
Yeah, and I mean Arlong, we go sometime a little bit later, and Arlong goes back to Full Shout Island in order to basically destroy the village who sold out Tiger. He wants to kill them all, but he's stopped by Borsalino. So,
which we know this is like 12, 13 years ago at this point.
Yeah, I think like 12 years ago now.
Yeah, I mean, so, but obviously, poor Arlong, he doesn't stand a chance.
No. If he's getting beat by
he never
Luffy
had a chance
early on, like there's no way he was gonna beat.
Who seems like he has his devil fruit by this point in time.
I would guess so.
Based on the smoldering smoke coming from his finger.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, yep, that's how that chapter ends. Is Arlong captured by Borsalino.
Boy, we got 2 chapters left. We're an hour into this recording.
Man, we thought the other stuff we were talking about would go long. I thought it was like, man, we're probably through all the really long ones for a while. Nope.
Man.
Well, let's not waste any time. Get to chapter 624, Queen Otohime. And hey, it's time to see Johnny and Yosaku. And Yosaku got jacked.
Yeah, seriously.
Holy crap.
And I love that they stayed at Cocoa Village.
Yeah, they're doing bounties, but they're also protecting the village a bit. That's cool.
Yeah, and they're going fishing.
It's pretty great. Not too much else to say there, but good on them. I was wondering about Johnny.
Dudes rock.
Yeah.
That's what I get from this panel. Dudes rock.
Yeah. We begin the chapter with Arlong imprisoned, getting grilled by the Navy. And that's when we find out Arlong's the one who created the story about humans refusing to give Tiger their blood.
Mm-hmm.
And Jinbei and Aladdin notice this as like, well, it's not too far, but the humans still effectively killed him.
Right, yeah. So I guess it's, again, you're shaping the story to fit your narrative.
And Arlong would never tell them the truth and kill that reputation. So yeah, that's where it's left. That's where it's left, and that we find the origin of where that story came from. In the meantime, Jinbei is the new captain, and he wants to just continue the legacy of Tiger.
Yeah, man, God, Jinbei's also been through it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Throughout this whole set, he lost his mentor basically. Essentially,
yeah, and you don't think about it, but it essentially is the flashback for Jinbei as well. Just getting all these story seriously. Context. And we even get Tiger definitely put up a fight because Strawberry is wrapped up. He is not in great shape.
He is wrapped up.
And that's when we find out that Jinbei actually wrote and told the truth to Neptune. That's when Otohime was like, "Oh, I finally understand the pain in his heart that day." And she's just like, "No, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to fail." And she just continues the whole thing.
That makes me almost kind of wish that we had seen kind of their ideals interact a little bit more. As far as we know, they didn't really. I feel like as the reader, you kind of understand that they're opposing ideologies, but they're never really shown as such. But I guess on the one hand, it's sort of cool to kind of leave that to yourself to pull it together. But I get the sense from Otohime's dialogue that she would have actually really respected Fisher Tiger. So maybe I wanted to see them interact.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see that how they actually interact in that way. But I think it would basically come down to her trying to get him to change and him basically saying no. So I don't think there's a whole
Yeah.
lot you can get out of that, but it'd still be interesting.
It sounds like a scene that would have been cut.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of get the extension of that with her interactions with Jinbei.
Yeah. And I like that we're seeing her again trying to get people this whole time, just like, hey, sign that petition. It's right there. You know, just one little John Hancock is all you need. But at this point, it's just, yeah, we're seeing kind of the perspective of the average fish person, where it's just like, nah, dude. At this point, the humans killed Fisher Tiger, so like, it's over.
Yeah, it's like they killed the folk hero. What she can she do against that? And she's just depressed that not a single person has signed a petition, and Shirahoshi's already 4, and it's just she's stuck with it, but nobody is going for it.
You can tell that she's stressed out.
Yeah.
even oh god, Fukaboshi, I think, is just like, you look tired, you know, and she's just resting on her daughter's fin. But then, you know, she cheers up. It'll be fine, you know. Let's promise to make a better future. So it just, she's doing the work, and that's what I love about Otohime so much in this section.
And I also like there's the detail, like, I forgot to mention this earlier, but she is obviously over 30 because you see her walking around. She just hasn't gone full Kokoro.
Yeah.
She was doing more than just trying to get people to sign petitions all the time. She organized rescue operations for wrecked ships, to rescue pirates. She's teaching the iron children about the surface, about flowers and trees and forests. And you can see Shirahoshi there, which, you know, explains how she was asking about, wait, have you seen forests and all that? Although I will say I got a laugh for completely outside of the manga's reasons when I saw a kid with a shirt that just says WAP.
Yeah, me
just
too.
Like, oh, that hits different in a post in the current day world if you know certain songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's circulating petitions. She's giving speeches on street corners, and you feel like, okay, she's making progress. But then people come up to her and it's like, you know, I began this petition over 5 years ago, and each petition sheet has 10 signatures, and there was 100 sheets, which mean about 1,000 people have signed. The population is 5 million, so I still need a few more signatures. It's like, my God, 5 years of work, and that's all she's gotten.
And that's God, again, it's just, the change is very, very, very slow.
Mm-hmm. And it's made even slower because all the people want to take back their petitions. They don't want to, it's like, it's the humans' fault. So stop giving speeches. We've had enough.
It's that setback that, like, you know, she comes home and, you know, she's like trying to keep a brave face, but, you know, she says like, I'd like some time for myself, and she just breaks down crying.
Mm-hmm. And it has that
to me, I talked about just like the range of emotions that she has, and just like how motherly and kind of like parental that feels, and that's what kind of did it for me. Is just like, oh no, with like, again, she is also, I think, could easily be characterized as a kind of like larger than life revolutionary figure, but is at the end of the day is also just another person with her own needs and emotions, and you know, she suffers setbacks and hard work doesn't turn out, and she cries about it.
Yeah, and she doesn't want to have her children see her cry.
See it exactly. Yeah. So it just like that hits to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just from a little bit earlier, the children saying they want back the petitions as well. That has to hit all the worse for her. But she gets so upset that she gets drunk and starts getting on the speaker.
Which is also, man, again.
Oh, gosh. Actually, I misremembered. It's actually 620. It's actually this chapter. This is the section I was thinking of. Okay. Not 625.
All right, cool.
She's basically just like, everybody's like, what's going on? That's Otohime's voice. She's like, hey, given that we can live anywhere in the water of this vast, vast ocean and on the dark, dark seafloor, why did we choose this place to live? Isn't it because here we can enjoy light and air? The surface has even more light and an endless sky. Why do our children sneak away to look at Saboti Park? There are so many more wonderful places in the world, and none of them should be off limits to us. Aren't we just making excuses so we don't have to try? So gather your courage and go after what you want most. If the humans form an obstacle to our dream, we should find a way to overcome it together. If we did that, we might change the destiny of the children of Fishman Island for the better. And that's the key thing here, is like, it's the children. It's the change the destiny of the children. It is all about the children and what we want. And I click for something rereading this with you. Mm-hmm. She mentions about wanting to see the surface. There's so much more light.
Yes.
What's the symbol of the Fishman pirates under Fisher Tiger? The sun pirates. They want the sun. They want to live on the surface, but they're too afraid to go for it.
Derek, the sun pirates is also foreshadowing.
I mean, I'm not shocked at this point. You could say you could say her getting drunk is foreshadowing at this point, and I believe it.
Yeah, I probably could. Yeah, but that's also I do again just talking about like the way that she's been trying to keep it together again for her children, for the children, and that it just. It's the most human thing in the world that she finally breaks and that she just gets on mic and starts ranting.
It's the thing that's been repeated again and again and again. And we've seen it with Hody. And you pointed out with Hody, it's the children who matter. We got to change the minds of children and not continue this cycle through them. That's the only way out of this. We have to be better for the children. And there is actually a line in 625 that I think also proliferates it much more with the whole children thing, but we'll get there.
Yes. Yeah. But it is, again, I love this framing for kind of for how many pitfalls you could have in an anti-racism story. It does feel like it is, at the end of the day, it is kind of like, yes, we are all saddled with a bunch of trauma, but even from like Koala acknowledged it too. Like, yeah, they just don't know. So like, there doesn't have to be this history of discrimination. Like the best time to start is now. So you got to teach the children, and that's how you make progress.
Yeah. But we move over to Jinbei and the Sun Pirates, and it turns out Jinbei has been quite successful because his bounty has hit 250 million berries, and there's actually been an offer to become one of the warlords of the sea. And as we know, that was 250 million berries was his bounty before becoming his warlord, and he's actually thinking about accepting the deal. And he even goes to Neptune and says, like, if I become one of the warlords, the government will pardon people like Aladdin who never want to become pirates. They can stop being fugitives and live here in peace. And on top of that, if I take this position, it will bring us fishmen even closer to the world government. So it's my way of sort of apologizing to Otohime.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, the pardon also has another problem. And that's when we see Arlong being released from Impel Down.
And I love that the first thing he says, talking smack, is just like, oh, you became a government dog.
And all Jinbei says is like, hey, don't remember, Tiger said not to live for hatred or revenge. And Arlong's like, nah, you've gone soft. I'm not being your underling, so it's time for the Arlong pirates to be their own thing again.
Well, and I love that he's like, all right, I'm heading out, and Jinbei just smacks him.
Because it's like, you got to kill me if you're going to want to stop me, because I embody the rage of the fishmen, and he just calls him a brat. It's satisfying to have somebody to tell Arlong to just shut up. It's sad that it doesn't work. He doesn't take Jinbei nor Fisher Tiger's lessons to heart, but I like that we get to see Jinbei kind of put him in his place a little bit. I wonder if this is, I don't know for sure, but I wonder if him not killing Arlong or stopping Arlong is what is how he considers it, unleashing him on the East Blue. But I have a feeling that's not it.
I kind of think it is, actually.
Okay.
At least on some level. I mean, because I feel like if Jinbei really, really, really wanted to stop him, he could have.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think there's a part of Jinbei that wants, for some reason, wants Arlong to be better. Mm-hmm. And maybe kind of underestimated the actual amount of damage that he could do, which I guess, also presuming like that's why Arlong went to the East Blue first, because it was the weakest and easiest of the seas to conquer.
Yeah.
So,
and he got dang close.
Yeah. So I guess it's just that I can see a situation where Jinbei's like not fully understanding the consequences. Like he kind of knows, like, yeah, Arlong probably shouldn't go, and he even says as such to King Neptune. But I could see like, oh, this went a lot worse than I thought it would.
Oh yeah. And as we see, Jinbei became one of the 7 warlords, and the Sun Pirates broke up into 3 factions. So we got Jinbei's pirates, the Arlong pirates, and it looks like the slavers. What's his name became? I forget his name.
Macro. Oh yeah. Macro.
Macro. That's it. And we end the chapter with probably the thing that sunk my heart the most. Is like, oh, this is Border Patrol. We have a giant wrecked ship requesting emergency entry. Well, bring him in. Well, there's a celestial dragon on the ship.
Oh no.
And that's when Otohime says, I'm going there right now. Like, oh no.
Should you?
It's like a heart sinking feeling as soon as you see that. It's like, oh no. So let's see how that goes with chapter 625, Uninherited Will.
That's a really fascinating chapter title.
Yeah, it is.
for a lot of reasons. We've seen the concept of inherited will, the idea of it as sort of one of the themes of the story. But can you uninherit one's will?
Good question. But for our cover, we got Zeph. He's remodeling the Baratier, looking well.
Yeah, I kind of love that we're going through all the East Blue folks.
Yeah, I think we're just we'll probably get to Alabasta and so forth as well.
Oh, for sure.
We're definitely just gonna keep going until we get to I don't know, Water 7 and see how they go. And I think that might be it, because
who knows?
The only island after that I can think of is Amazon Lily.
Probably not gonna get. Not much reason to see Thriller Bark for maybe more than 1 or 2.
Right.
Maybe it would be. We could see some of Impel Down. I do know that it has. There are changes that I am aware of, I think.
Yeah. I accidentally spoiled myself on a very slight change that I already know the reasoning for because of what we've already read, but I'm not going to go any further than that. So yeah, we begin the chapter itself with this wreck of the ship of a celestial dragon attacked by the creatures of the seafloor. And we got the friggin' celestial dragon is shooting at everything. Is the weak-willed trash all died. Hurry up and bring me a mask, fish. This place risks of fishmen, so bring me a mask and save my life. And this is Saint Miosgard.
Which, speaking of spoilers, if I actually got a good laugh out of this, because I did not know that this character showed up in this flashback.
Oh no, this guy continues. Oh god.
Yeah. Not only he is a recurring character. If you've been reading along, do not look up this character.
Oh, okay.
His family name is a massive spoiler.
Oh my god. All right.
We'll get to that. It's not that far away, but I was like, oh. They didn't say.
Huh. That's fascinating.
That's a 100 to 200 chapters kind of spoiler, not a oh, you're caught up kind of thing. So we'll learn it relatively soon, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But I was like, oh, this guy, he's here.
No.
And yeah, he's of course, here in Fishman Island, and he's just acting as a celestial dragon would.
Yep, pretty much. A guy on the death's door. You know what? This is the most I've ever understood with Hody. So he's just
Hody just rolls up. He's like, we should kill him.
Yeah, we got to kill him. That's the only thing we can do. Which, knowing what we know of celestial dragons, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that really brings up such a fascinating kind of, again, it's kind of like the koala thing, but an even more extreme version of it, of here's a human that needs help, but it's like that, koala was a slave just like the rest of them, and now here's the slaver.
Yeah, asking for help, and not even asking, demanding
help. Yeah,
just being as privileged as he's always been. And it's also our first introduction to Vanderdecken, because he's hanging out in the pub nearby, which is very appropriate. It also makes me very worried, considering what might be Vanderdecken showing up made me go oh no. Not because of Vanderdecken himself, same. But just because of the timing of things.
And we kind of get a little bit of a motivation for Miosgard here, where he's here to bring back his slaves.
Yeah, he wanted to invade Fishman Island to get back his slaves because they were freed because of Jinbei.
It's just I paid good money for my Fishman slave collection, so I just you've just got to get them back, simply.
Oh God, he makes all you get to see these not get to, but you see these slave women all around him, like both characters, and it's just like,
yep.
And these are always just the most grotesque looking people.
They really are like that.
There's a bit of a wobble to them in some ways.
Well,
I think they're even uglier than Wapple. But I think it's a sign of Wapple being very much of that privileged sect, with him being like, I'm a ruler, I can do whatever I want, and that's the same idea behind the celestial dragon. So
yeah, I actually think there's something to that, where we see, I mean, when you think about that, the celestial dragons are kind of the ultimate form of nobility in this world. So I mean, you think about what we saw back at Grey Terminal, where like they were basically like royalty for the boonies, right? Like they were trying to cosplay as the celestial dragons. Like, oh, this is just how royalty works in our world. So like this is the ideal to aspire to be, as gross and disgusting as that is, which I think is all the more important to point it out. Would we see, royalty like Alabasta, that are like actually good-natured human beings, because they're hard to come by.
Yeah, we've seen that more and more, but man, it's a powerful scene to see these former slaves go up to the celestial dragon armed with guns and being just like, and he's still just demanding like, you're coming back with me. When did I grant you your freedom? And they just all point their guns at him. Everybody's like, no, you can't. It'll nullify your pardons. And it's like, no, the power you wield on the surface is only guaranteed by the Navy admirals. You're on the floor of the sea now. As long as the other islanders keep quiet, you're just another shipwrecked corpse. And
don't snitch.
Yeah, and everybody around is like, nope, not snitching.
Yeah, and they raise a fair point too. Like, if they had just left him alone, he would have died anyway.
Yeah. So they're just like, kill him, make him suffer. And he's just confused, like, I'm great and powerful, so why? Why is my privilege not working?
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's too real.
And we get to see the tiger stuff. I know I'm supposed to forgive, but I can never forgive you. And he goes to shoot, and no, this guy is saved. Miosgard is saved by Queen Otohime, who gets him out of the way of the shot just in time. The bullet even grazed her arm, and this is the line I was actually thinking of. I jumped the gun.
Okay.
It's like there's like, Queen Otohime, are you okay? And she's like, no, put your guns down now. The children are watching. And right there,
man,
that is the key point of these 5 chapters.
Yes, absolutely. And I was going to say, like, to think that the first real actual, like, act of sympathy we've ever seen towards, like, a celestial dragon, from somebody who wasn't trying to suck up to them, like, that Queen Otohime treats him like any other regular person in danger, says so much. And that it is her slaver, the people that like that enslaves her people, and I think that is also kind of a really tricky line too, because like I don't think Oda in any way is like, oh no, look, these are people too, like, no, they're people who are doing really horrible, disgusting things, but like Queen Otohime, again, like she's got her eyes on the prize. It's like, no, it is more important than you or I right now. It is about the children. Yeah, and I think it's very pointed. It's like we can't. It's not like all life is precious in her mind. I don't think she's arguing that. I don't think she cares about the celestial dragon. It's what he represents and the fact that the children are there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think what gets me is that like, you can tell that she has like the ideal world that she wants to build. Like it is in her mind, and she is going to do anything she can to accomplish that goal. And so she is looking so far ahead that like she's like, it's not even that like she's above it all necessarily. It's just like, it feels like in every moment she knows exactly what she needs to do to fulfill her dream.
And just the lines like, don't let yourselves hate humans. Don't teach your children to hate them. They will meet them one day. They will learn. And this is, you can really see her words really starting to pierce through Jinbei now. And thinking of Tiger's last words. But of course, this being a celestial dragon, he grabs a hold of his gun and holds her at gunpoint, trying to make his way. When Shirahoshi screams out for her mother and causes a massive sound wave that summons Neptunians.
Yes. And you can see one of them is just eating the ship.
Yep.
The
big old ship,
ship
right in the mouth. It's just like,
so
everybody's freaking out.
I actually forgot, because it's been a minute since getting to Fishmen Island. This is new to us right now, right?
Yes, we've never seen this before.
Just making sure that this had not been alluded to in any way, because I don't remember.
We finally, this grants us more reasoning behind Vanderdecken's motivations than just he wants to marry Shirahoshi. He doesn't care about Shirahoshi. It's what she's capable of, because he's the only one that understands what she's all about. There was long ago, there was a mermaid princess who had the uncanny ability to control Neptunians. That legend was what lured the first Vanderdecken down to the seafloor. He has finally found her. But they can't tell anybody, because that only belongs to his family alone. So first he has to marry the princess.
It's like, bro, she's 4.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's his reasoning. It's not about loving her, although it is more of a question about him trying to kill her now. Like, why are you trying to kill her when she's that important, dude?
Yeah, God, this feels like such a, like, why did you kill Piccolo if you wanted the Dragon Balls kind of moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of an interesting, kind of not really something that has to do with the current conflict, but it is interesting that we learn this information now.
Yeah.
And there is slightly more to this that we'll learn later, but it is kind of a cool extra little twist.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that's a little thread for us to discover as we continue in current day Fishman Island, I feel.
Yeah.
I'll talk more about it in a bit here. Anyway, takes a few weeks, but they nurse the celestial dragon back to his health. He's as appreciative as ever. It's just like, you pointed your gun at your master, I'll make you regret it. And it's like, he's still threatening them, but they can't let it go. And Otohime says, it seems we're not done talking yet. I'd better accompany you to the surface. And everybody's like, no. No. If someone's going to talk to a noble, I'll do it. And that's Neptune. He's like, the humans wouldn't dare harm the king. It's like, no, it means nothing if you go. The only way to prove it's safe for us to go to the surface is for someone weak like me to go there and return. I'm like, oh, this is how she dies. That was my thought.
That was my thought too. I was like, oh no. But like she comes back. Yeah. Like just kind of like, and I love that, she's only gone for a week and they're already like, I miss her speeches.
They could feel what she means to all of them. Like they were discounting her speeches and saying like, we don't want them anymore. But now they're actually missing them. And there's a real like worry here, like even as a reader, because it's like, oh yeah, you know what the celestial dragons are like. And yet she actually comes back and was able to appease the celestial dragon. Don't know how yet, but she got a piece of paper that would become a ray of hope for all of Fishman Island. We don't know what that paper is, but boy, is it important, it seems.
Wow. And that's the end of the chapter.
And that's the end of the chapter. It's, man, it is phenomenal. Like, just what a backstory. What a flashback.
I think Queen Otohime is actually one of the best characters in the entirety of the series. And honestly, Fisher Tiger too. They're both goats. They are some of the most interesting and morally complex characters that this manga has ever had. And again, I mentioned the Skypiea flashback at the top of the podcast, but it is kind of like, I'm always floored when we get these stories that are kind of like, again, it's like, oh God.
And that one was definitely about coming to an understanding about everything. And again, it would have ultimately been like, people suck because of the gold is the only reason they were coming back. And it wasn't following the ideals held by the people who actually made the connection.
It's so human.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the most prescient quotes of all time, of all things, come from Men in Black, where a person is rational, thoughtful, thinks about things, but people are thoughtless, scared, and basically I don't have the exact quote in my head, but basically you know the quote at this point, where it's like,
right, it's mob mentality.
You get that mob mentality and things break down.
Yeah, and I feel like there's what makes this such a fantastic flashback to me is that there's so much buildup, because we have had the Fishmen as sort of like a, the subplot slash main plot, main plot for Arlong, but sort of the history and strife of it all has kind of come up in bits and pieces in a way that really, like, again, that you were introduced to it through the lens of Arlong, and as the reader you're kind of like, oh, like, these Fishmen are all bad news, until you learn that, like, no, there is actually a much more complicated history of discrimination and slavery and racial tension, that, like, it's amazing how Oda is able to, like, every time we learn more and more about this history, it recontextualizes previously held information. Like we learned so much about Arlong as a character, even if he wasn't a particularly nuanced character. There is something about, and you see how Arlong was, and how Hody basically became, purposely like a mini Arlong, because it is that kind of like, no matter what you see, the hatred is so deeply ingrained.
Mm-hmm. Again,
that it blinds you.
The line, "The children are watching."
Yeah,
that's the one I was thinking of. I jumped the gun a little bit, but it still matters.
No, I think that is hugely important, and I think it is. Again, just thinking about the world that Queen Otohime wants to create, like, it is. She understands the situation so brilliantly, and understands that, like what you have to do in order to, it might not be this generation or the generation after that or after that, but slowly things will change as those teachings are passed down. That's the inherited will, right?
Yes.
And so you could think of, in a way, kind of the uninherited will is the kind of Arlong Hody side of things.
Exactly. The things we don't want to pass on. And honestly, this whole set of chapters just lifts up everything that came before so much.
Yep. It does. It does, and it also makes me mad. It makes me mad that the current time plotline is so just messy and haphazard.
I think we said that it feels like Oda knew he needed to have, since this is a shonen manga, needed to have some sort of action and conflict for the present day, but what he really wanted to tell was this story.
Yes, and I understand that too. And I understand even now, like, I think I even said this maybe on the last episode or the one before that, like, but like, Hody is also a victim of his environment, right? And like, you see that through the drugs that he's taking, and like the harm that he has to cause to achieve his goals. I want to sympathize with that, but because his worldview is like depicted as so just like cartoonishly simple, because it is simple. It is simple
because look at Arlong. His worldview was simple, so it makes sense for Hody's to be just as simple, if not more so, because he didn't have Fisher Tiger there. He only saw Arlong.
I guess that what I wish is that, like, there was somebody else, and I guess Jinbei is sort of that, but he's also not, because he's from a different generation. But like, I wish there was more to the current day plot line than just like, oh, Hody's really racist because he was raised that way. And you understand, I feel like even without this flashback, you understand why he is that way. But like, it isn't interesting enough to like be the driving conflict of the narrative, in my personal opinion.
Not quite. He doesn't quite have that there yet, and we don't exactly have an opposing viewpoint yet. We don't have somebody taking up the Otohime role to help balance it out.
I wish he had a foil, and right now all he has is a bunch of Goonies and like Vanderdecken or whatever. Like no, it's just it doesn't really work at all for me personally.
And Shirahoshi can't become the foil because she's been too sheltered, and the princes have not had a chance to have much of a personality given to them.
And ultimately, like, the strength of the Straw Hats as characters is, and Luffy in particular, is their kind of ability to cut through it all. And that's always really satisfying whenever we see it. But it does make them kind of feel, even like, it makes them feel detached in a way. Even though I know, Nami's whole backstory is tied to the history of Fishman Island, but like it does make them feel like outsiders, because they are. And ultimately, like, they just want, they want to help their friends, but they're not like so deeply invested in the history of Fishman Island either.
I'm going to be greatly interested in what Fishman Island is like after these flashbacks. I will say, thanks to this flashback alone, this has the potential to be a better arc than Thriller Bark for me. We'll see.
Well, I think no matter what happens in the rest of the arc, this flashback it's a 10. It's an easiest 10 of my life. So even if I maybe don't like how the rest of the arc shakes out, like, this is such a fantastic, concise and isolated piece of storytelling that, like, I may not like Fishman Island. We'll see, but like this flashback really is as good as people say, if not better.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it isn't hyped up enough for how good it is. And I've heard from multiple people who are just like, just wait till the flashback, Brandon, just wait, like, oh, Fishman Island might be bad, but like, at least that flashback is really good. And I was like, I remember feeling it was all right, but no, wow, it is way better than I ever gave it credit for.
For sure. But I'm pretty sure even after editing, this is gonna be the longest episode yet. This is
wow, boy.
There's meat on them bones, that's for sure.
I'm glad. I've been starving.
Oh man, I can't wait to see how this all ends up, and
me too.
How we get back to it. I think you said we're only about 25-ish chapters from the end of the arc, so
yeah, assuming, I mean, the time skip started at 597 or whatever, we're basically halfway through.
Yeah, very cool. So we'll have to see how that all goes. And yeah, with that, I believe we've said all we've wanted to say about chapters 621 to 625 of One Piece. Thank you so much for listening, and you can find more of my ramblings and stream VODs over at BitNerd Games on YouTube, or BitNerd with an underscore at the end on Twitter. And Brandon, where can everyone find you at?
I am at Brandon Bovia on Twitter, talking about anime, manga, games, and my job. No, I don't think I have any upcoming projects I want to shill. So, just stay tuned. Talking about Beyblade a lot.
There you go. And if you'd like to help us out more, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/Derek Bittner. That's DERRICKBITNER to listen to the next episode ad-free 3 days early. And make sure to return next time as we discuss chapters 626 to 630 of One Piece. So until then, my friends, bye.
Remember to take life one piece at a time.
I'm sorry. I'm a hard worker. I'll clean, and I don't need to take a break. So please don't hit me. I'm sorry. I'll give it my best.